I still remember the exact moment I met Lisa. It was my junior year of college, and I was running late to class, half jogging across campus with a coffee in one hand and a half-eaten granola bar in the other. I turned a corner too fast, and before I could react, bam, hot coffee spilled all over my shirt. I looked up, ready to curse my bad luck, and there she was, standing there with wide eyes and an empty coffee cup. "Oh my God. I am so sorry," she blurted out, frantically trying to dab my soaked shirt with a napkin. I was irritated for maybe half a second, but then I noticed the way her nose crinkled when she looked embarrassed, the way her dark hair fell into her face as she fussed over the mess she'd made. And just like that, my annoyance was gone. Well, I was going to be late to class anyway. This just gives me a better excuse, I joked, trying to make her feel less guilty. She smirked. Glad I could help, I guess? We ended up skipping our classes that morning and grabbing a new cup of coffee together instead. One conversation turned into two, then into an entire afternoon of talking. She was quick-witted, sharp, and had this confidence about her that made it impossible not to be drawn to her. From that day on, we were inseparable. 3 years later, we got married. It wasn't a huge wedding, just a cozy ceremony with our closest friends and family. Lisa wanted it to be simple but elegant, and she pulled it off perfectly. That day, I thought I had everything I could ever want. Back then, I truly believed we were the perfect match. Life with Lisa was never boring. From the moment we moved in together after college, there was always this natural rhythm between us. She wasn't the type to fuss over small things. She had this effortless way of making everything feel exciting, even the most mundane parts of life. Our first apartment was a tiny one-bedroom with creaky floors and a bathroom sink that constantly leaked, but we loved it. We'd spend Friday nights on the couch, eating takeout and watching bad reality TV, making bets on which contestant would get kicked off next. Weekends were for exploring new restaurants, road trips, hiking trails. Lisa had an adventurous streak, always pushing me to try new things, while I kept us grounded, making sure our bills got paid on time and that we had an actual plan for the future. We balanced each other out. After a few years, we upgraded to a house, a modest 2-story place in a quiet neighborhood. It had a backyard big enough for barbecues in the summer and a cozy fireplace for the winter. Lisa loved decorating, and before I knew it, she had transformed the house into something straight out of a home design magazine. She had an eye for that kind of thing, turning the ordinary into something special. Lisa and I had our routines, little traditions that made our relationship feel like home. Sunday mornings were always the same. I'd wake up first, make coffee, and sit by the kitchen window while reading the news. Lisa would shuffle in half asleep, steal my mug instead of pouring her own, and curl up on the couch with a blanket, mumbling something about how weekends were made for sleeping in. I never argued. She had this thing about music. She couldn't cook without blasting some ridiculous playlist in the background. One night it would be 90s pop, the next it'd be classic rock, and if she was in a good mood, she'd grab my hand and make me dance in the middle of the kitchen. I never complained, even though I had 2 left feet. Vacations were another thing we loved. We weren't the type to lounge on a beach for a week. Lisa always wanted to be on the move. We went hiking in Colorado, took a road trip up the coast of California, even tried skydiving once, her idea, obviously. She had this way of convincing me to do things I never would have tried on my own, and somehow, I always ended up loving it. Even on regular days, life with her felt full. She made simple things exciting. Going to the grocery store turned into an adventure if Lisa was in charge. She'd make a game out of guessing people's backstories in the checkout line. Or she'd sneak extra snacks into the cart when I wasn't looking, only to defend herself with a dramatic, "But we need these." Looking back, I can say that our life was good. It was steady, filled with laughter, small joys, and quiet moments that felt important even though they didn't seem like much at the time. I thought we were happy. I thought we were solid. If only I had known what was coming. I don't know exactly when it started, but looking back, there were signs, little things that didn't seem important at the time but now feel impossible to ignore. It started subtly. Lisa was always on her phone, but now she seemed more protective of it. She used to leave it lying around the house, on the kitchen counter, on the nightstand, anywhere. But lately, she kept it close, bringing it with her even when she went to the bathroom, flipping it over whenever she set it down. I told myself it was nothing. People are glued to their phones these days, right? No big deal. Then there were the late nights. Lisa's job had always been demanding, but suddenly she had a lot more work events. Business dinners, late meetings, networking gatherings. She would come home later than usual, always with a perfectly reasonable excuse. I remember the first night it really bothered me. It was a Wednesday, nothing special. I had picked up dinner on my way home, expecting Lisa to be there, but she texted me last minute. Lisa, ugh, stuck at work. Don't wait up. Long night ahead. I shrugged it off, ate alone, and didn't think much of it, until she came home 3 hours later, smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. You smell different, I said as she kicked off her heels. Lisa barely hesitated. Oh, one of the women at work gave me a hug. She practically bathed in her perfume. She laughed, waving me off. It was such a casual answer. So smooth. I told myself I was being paranoid. But then it kept happening. More late nights. More unexplained absences. More little things that didn't add up. One night, I noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. Lisa never took it off, not even when she showered. When I asked about it, she acted like it was nothing. Oh, I forgot it in the bathroom at work. I'll grab it tomorrow. I forced a smile, but something in my gut twisted. I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. I wasn't ready to admit what my mind was starting to whisper. But something was wrong. I could feel it. Once the suspicion took root, I couldn't shake it. It was like an itch I couldn't scratch, a low hum of unease that followed me everywhere. I wanted to believe Lisa. I really did. But the little things kept adding up, and no matter how much I tried to ignore them, they refused to be ignored. She started dressing differently, more effort, more makeup, new clothes that I hadn't seen before. Lisa had always taken care of herself, but this was different. She started wearing lingerie I hadn't seen in months, but not for me. Who's all this for? I asked one evening as she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting a dress that hugged her curves a little too perfectly. She rolled her eyes, as if I were being ridiculous. For myself. Can't a woman want to look good without it being about someone else? I didn't have an answer for that. Then came the passwords. Lisa and I had never been the type of couple who snooped through each other's things. I trusted her, and she trusted me, at least, that's how it used to be. But one day, I grabbed her laptop to check something online, and the familiar home screen was gone. A login page stared back at me. I frowned. Hey, what's your password? I need to check something. Lisa barely looked up from her phone. Oh, I changed it. Work stuff. Security reasons. It wasn't like I had a habit of going through her things, but something about the way she said it made my stomach tighten. I tried to tell myself it was normal, that I was being ridiculous. But it didn't feel normal. I started watching her more closely, looking for something, anything, that would either confirm my fears or put them to rest. One evening, I tested her. We were sitting on the couch, Lisa scrolling through her phone, laughing at something. Who are you texting? I asked casually. She didn't even look up. Just Sarah. Sarah was one of her closest friends. I nodded and let it go. But later that night, while Lisa was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I picked up her phone. It was locked. Not unusual. But when I tried the code I knew by heart, her birthday, it didn't work. She had changed it. A cold wave of realization washed over me. Lisa was keeping secrets. And I had a feeling I wasn't going to like what I found. The thing about suspicion is that once it creeps in, it changes everything. I started noticing things I would have brushed off before. The way Lisa seemed more distant, how her laughter felt just a little too forced when we talked, how she barely looked at me anymore when she thought I wasn't paying attention. It wasn't just the late nights or the sudden change in her habits, it was something deeper, something I couldn't quite put into words. It was like living with a stranger, someone who wore my wife's face but no longer acted like the woman I married. I tried to ignore it at first. I told myself that maybe I was just being paranoid, that relationships went through phases and maybe she was just stressed from work. But then the intimacy started to fade. Lisa had always been affectionate, casual touches when she walked past me, playful kisses in the morning, little moments that reminded me we were more than just roommates. Now, those moments were gone. If I reached for her, she pulled away. If I kissed her goodnight, she turned her head at the last second, so my lips landed on her cheek instead. I wanted to believe it was unintentional, that she didn't notice. But I noticed. Then there were the calls she didn't want me to hear. Lisa was never one to hide things, at least, not before. But suddenly, she was stepping out of the room to answer calls, lowering her voice when she spoke, walking outside when she thought I wasn't paying attention. One night, I caught her whispering in the kitchen, her back turned toward me. I didn't want to be that husband, the one who eavesdrops, but something in my gut told me to listen. I know. I miss you too. No, I can't tonight. He's home. The moment I stepped into the room, Lisa flinched. She turned around too quickly, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Hey, I was just talking to Sarah. Sarah again. Lisa's safety net. She used her best friend's name so often now it was starting to feel rehearsed. I leaned against the counter, studying her. You sure about that? Her smile didn't falter, but something flickered in her eyes. Annoyance? Fear? Of course. Who else would I be talking to? I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But the way she clutched her phone like it was a lifeline, the way she slipped past me without meeting my eyes, it all felt wrong. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while she slept soundly. I should have confronted her right then and there, should have demanded answers. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew that if I asked, I might not like the answer. And I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it yet. I came home from work that evening expecting another strained, awkward dinner. Another night of pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. But when I walked through the front door, the house was silent. Too silent. No music playing in the background. No sound of Lisa moving around. Just nothing. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was in the shower or napping. But when I stepped into the bedroom, I froze. Her closet was half empty. The drawers where she kept her clothes were open, some of them completely cleared out. Her jewelry box was gone. The suitcase we usually used for trips wasn't there. My stomach dropped. I rushed through the house, checking every room, as if I had just imagined the missing things, as if she'd pop out from behind a corner and tell me I was overreacting. But the more I looked, the more obvious it became. Lisa was gone. I pulled out my phone and called her. It rang twice before going straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. A text, then another. Nothing. And then I noticed it. Our safe, the small lockbox we kept in the bedroom closet. It was slightly open, the lid tilted just enough for me to see the inside. My hands trembled as I pulled it all the way open. My emergency cash, gone. There had been at least $5,000 in there. Money I had been saving just in case we ever needed it. And now, there was nothing but an empty space where it used to be. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. This wasn't just her leaving for a few days to clear her head. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Lisa had packed up and left. She had stolen from me. And worst of all, she hadn't even bothered to tell me why. I checked the nightstand where she kept her wedding ring when she wasn't wearing it. Empty. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the empty drawers, my thoughts looping in circles. A part of me wanted to believe there was some kind of mistake, that there was a reasonable explanation. But deep down, I knew better. Lisa had made her choice. And she hadn't just left me. She had left me like this. Without a single word, without a goodbye. And whoever she had run to, it had to be someone she trusted enough to throw away everything we had built together. I was too numb to be angry. That would come later. But right then, all I felt was a quiet, crushing kind of betrayal. The next morning, I woke up hoping, praying, that it had all been a bad dream. That I'd roll over and see Lisa next to me, mumbling about how I should let her sleep for 5 more minutes. That I'd hear her in the kitchen, making coffee, like she always did. But the house was still empty. And the truth hit me all over again. Lisa was gone. I sat up, rubbing my face, trying to push down the nausea that came with reality sinking in. My wife had packed her things, stolen my money, and left without an explanation. And the worst part? I still didn't know where she went. Or at least, that's what I thought. Until I got a call from my younger brother, Eric. At first, I didn't pick up. I wasn't in the mood to talk to anyone, not even him. But then he called again. And again. Something about it felt off, so I finally answered. Dude, Eric said the second I picked up. His voice was tense, almost nervous. I need to tell you something, and I don't know how to say it. I sat up straighter. What's going on? There was a long pause. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, he said, Lisa's here. I felt my heart stop. What? She showed up late last night. With bags. She said she needed a place to stay. The air in the room felt like it had been sucked out. You're kidding. I wish I was. Another pause. She didn't say much, just that things between you weren't working out and she needed space. My hands clenched into fists. She needed space? That was her excuse for disappearing in the middle of the night like a coward? Eric, I said, my voice dangerously calm, are you sleeping with my wife? What? No. Jesus, Dan, no. I would never do that to you. He sounded genuinely offended, and for a moment, I believed him. But then why had Lisa run to him? And then it clicked. The secret phone calls. The constant lies. The way she had been different these past few months. She hadn't just left me. She had been cheating on me. And not just with anyone, with my own brother. Everything around me blurred. The walls. The floor. Even Eric's voice on the other end of the line. My own blood had betrayed me. The woman I had loved, trusted, built a life with, she had thrown it all away for him. I took a slow, shaky breath, trying to contain the rage boiling inside me. How long? I finally asked. Eric hesitated. Dan, how long? A heavy silence. Then, almost too quietly, he said, a few months. A few months. I laughed, the sound bitter and hollow. All this time, I had been second-guessing myself, wondering if I was paranoid. Meanwhile, they had been sneaking around behind my back. I'm coming over, I said, my voice eerily calm. Dan, wait. I hung up. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I don't remember driving to Eric's place. 1 second, I was sitting in my empty house, my heart pounding in my ears, and the next, I was standing at his doorstep, my fist clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. My own brother. My own wife. The two people who should have had my back, who should have been the last to betray me, had been sneaking around behind mine instead. Eric answered the door, looking nervous as hell. Dan, listen. I didn't let him finish. My fist connected with his jaw before I even realized I had swung. He staggered backward, catching himself against the wall. You're a liar. A thief. A coward, I spat. My voice was eerily calm, but the rage inside me was a wildfire. You had months to tell me. Months. But instead, you let me sit there like an idiot while you screwed my wife behind my back. Lisa appeared in the hallway, wearing one of Eric's shirts. One of his shirts. My stomach turned. She had the nerve to look surprised, like she hadn't seen this coming. You stole from me, I snapped, turning my attention to her. Packed your bags in the middle of the night and ran off with my money, like some cheap con artist. And now you're hiding here? In my brother's house? Lisa straightened, crossing her arms like she was trying to play it cool. I didn't steal from you, she said, her voice dripping with fake confidence. That money was ours. And I didn't think you'd care this much, Dan. You and I have been over for a while. My blood boiled. You're right about one thing, I said coldly. We're over. And I'm going to make damn sure you regret every second of what you did. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I didn't need to. Instead, I turned around and walked away, because I had a better plan. The next morning, I met with my lawyer. I told him everything. How Lisa had stolen money from me, how she had been cheating, how she had abandoned our home without a word. He listened carefully, nodding as I laid it all out, then leaned back in his chair with a thoughtful expression. Legally, you have a strong case, he said. We can sue her for the stolen money. With proof of her infidelity, we can push for compensation. And since the car she drives is in your name, you can take that back too. That last part made me smile. Lisa loved that car. I had given it to her for our anniversary, a sleek black sedan she had picked out herself. She had bragged about it to her friends, made a whole show of driving it around like it was the best thing she had ever owned. And now? Now, it was mine again. I wasted no time. My lawyer filed the necessary paperwork, and within days, Lisa was served. She had to return every single penny she stole, and then some. I made sure of it. She tried to fight it, tried to play the victim, but with the evidence stacked against her, she didn't stand a chance. And then there was Eric. I knew something about him that his boss didn't. He drank at work. I had seen it before, little things, flasks hidden in his desk, the way his breath smelled like whiskey even in the morning. He had gotten away with it for years, but not anymore. A few well-placed words to the right people, and suddenly, Eric was under review. A week later? Fired. He called me furious. Are you serious, Dan? You're ruining my life over this. I laughed. Oh, so it's only a big deal when it affects you? I said. You had no problem sneaking around with my wife. No problem lying to my face. But now that the consequences are hitting you, suddenly it's not so fun anymore. You're a real piece of work, he muttered. No, Eric, I said, my voice ice cold. You are. And now, you're going to live with it. I hung up, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. They thought they could betray me and walk away without consequences. They were wrong. Once Eric lost his job, it didn't take long for his life to start falling apart. The thing about my brother was that he had always been reckless. Drinking at work was just one of the many bad habits he had managed to hide for years. Without a steady paycheck, his bills piled up fast. His car got repossessed. And Lisa? Well, she wasn't exactly the ride-or-die type. I heard through mutual friends that things between them soured almost immediately. Lisa had left me thinking she was trading up, swapping stability for something new, something exciting. But now, Eric wasn't fun anymore. He wasn't the carefree, easygoing guy she had been sneaking around with. He was unemployed, desperate, and drowning in his own mess. And Lisa? She wasn't the type to stick around when things got tough. One day, I got a text from an unknown number. Lisa, can we talk? Please? I stared at the screen for a long time before I laughed. After everything, after the lies, the betrayal, the way she stole from me and walked away like I was nothing, now she wanted to talk? I blocked the number. Then, just when I thought I had heard the last of them, Eric showed up at my house. I almost didn't recognize him at first. He looked like hell, disheveled, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. Dan, man, just hear me out, he started, shifting uncomfortably on my doorstep. I screwed up. Okay? I know I did. But I lost everything and I held up a hand, cutting him off. I don't care. He blinked, like he hadn't expected that. Come on, I'm your brother. No, Eric, I said calmly. You stopped being my brother the second you decided to betray me. He looked desperate now. Lisa left. She took off, man. I don't even know where she is. That was the first thing he had said that actually made me smile. Good. Then I guess we're both done with her. Eric swallowed hard, shifting his weight from foot to foot. I wanted to fix things with you. I miss my brother. I took a slow breath, looking at the man I had once trusted, once defended, once thought I could rely on no matter what. And now? Now all I saw was a liar who had burned everything to the ground for nothing. There's nothing to fix, I said. I'm done, Eric. I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a brother anymore. His face crumbled. Dan, I shut the door in his face. And for the first time in months, I felt free. Lisa was gone. Eric was out of my life. And me? I was finally moving forward. The day Lisa left, I thought my life had fallen apart. I thought I would never get past the betrayal, the anger, the sheer humiliation of being played by the two people I should have been able to trust the most. But standing here now, looking at everything I've done since then, I can honestly say, I'm better off without them. It took time, of course. The divorce went through quickly thanks to my lawyer, and since Lisa had no leg to stand on, she ended up having to pay me back double the amount she stole. She tried to fight it, cried in court about how she had nowhere to go, but the judge didn't buy it. She chose this path, and she could deal with the consequences. I got my car back, too. The same car she had loved so much, the one she had shown off like it was hers. When I picked it up from where the court ordered her to return it, I couldn't help but smile. It felt like a trophy. As for Eric, he lost everything. Without a job, without Lisa, and with his reputation in shambles, he had nothing left. He tried reaching out a few more times, through mutual friends, even through my parents, but I made it clear I was done with him. Some betrayals you just can't come back from. And me? I started fresh. I sold the house. I didn't want to live in the same place that had been tainted by all their lies. It took some time, but I found a new place, a place that was mine, where every inch of it felt like a fresh start. I changed my routine, picked up new hobbies, even started going to the gym regularly. Not out of anger, not out of some desperate attempt to prove anything, but because for the first time in a long time, I was doing things for myself. And then, one day, I woke up and realized that I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't thinking about Lisa. I wasn't thinking about Eric. I wasn't replaying conversations in my head, wondering how things could have gone differently. I was happy. I had lost my wife. I had lost my brother. But I had found something more important, myself. And honestly, I wouldn't trade that for anything.